This is the Liz Harrison Show.
I'm Liz Harrison. Good afternoon. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on the air. Big news. Apparently, somebody out there thinks that, the show is worth listening to. There is a new station out there, K9, well, they've been around for a while, but new to me, K98talk.com. This show will be rebroadcast on that station. Apparently, at around, I think it is, let me see here, folks. They want to confuse me. 9 to 10 Central, which makes it 10 to 11 Eastern. So if you miss it here on Vigilant Liberty Radio, you can catch it over on K98talk.com. Isn't that wonderful news? Otherwise, the Right War, which I'm on FTR, and simulcasts here on VLR on Wednesdays and Thursdays, will also be over on the K98talk.com. The week following each given show, Monday and Tuesday nights, it will be before this show on K98 Talk in the 8 to 9 o'clock Central hour. So, at least that's what I'm told. I have to talk to the boss man over there. Hopefully they'll be picking up today and not thinking, oh no, there's problems. Anyway, I've been having a busy holiday. That was why I was totally absent in between Christmas and whatnot. Yeah, basically I came back from going east to our state capital area and just could not manage to do anything. I was just completely worn out. I guess it does that to me. I used to go out there on a regular basis back when I used to work on campaigns, and it would wear me out then, of course, because of meetings and dealing with issues and all of that fun stuff. This time, none of that. It was just the whole touristy thing. And it turns out that's just as tiring. Maybe more so. Because, I'm not big on doing the whole tourist type deal anywhere. So going to Hershey, Pennsylvania. Chocolate World. Yeah. Related to the Milton Hershey family by marriage, the husband's great-grandmother was Milton Hershey's aunt. So when we go out there, we joke around with them and sit there and say, yeah, if only that actually got us something, even if it was like a free box of chocolate every year. No such luck. Anyway, on to what has been going on lately. I'm just going to mention it briefly, because I didn't really want to talk about it very much because it is depressing. The second funeral was yesterday from the two officers in New York. And some of the police department, some of the officers decided to turn their backs on de Blasio again. It is not looking good. It really isn't. I don't foresee de Blasio admitting that he was wrong. I'm sorry, I just don't. It's not going to happen. So, I don't know what's going to happen as far as what the officers are going to do. I still can't get my mind around the concept of de Blasio telling his son what he did about watching out for police officers simply because of his race. That's... There's no words. I'm sorry, there just aren't. But anyway, onward and upward to Washington. Or downward, whichever way you want to put it. New faces in Washington. Republicans will be taking over quite a few committees. John Boehner will apparently still run the House, but we'll see about that. There's more to talk about there, apparently. But I don't know how much it is. As for the major House committees with new leaders coming up this year, agriculture is one. Michael Conaway from Texas will be taking up that over Frank Lucas from Oklahoma. So there's that. Now, this might seem like, oh, snore, why do we care about this? Don't forget that agriculture is in charge of the food stamps SNAP program. Right. So this is a good change, theoretically. We'll see. Conaway led the ethics committee before, so maybe we could get some ethical behavior going on there. Mac Thornberry of Texas will take over armed services. So he's moving in there. And Georgia's Tom Price is taking over the budget committee. Right. Intelligence will be Devin Nunes, I believe it is. He's close to Boehner. And let's see. Natural resources. Rob Bishop. And he's from Utah, and he has opposed wilderness declarations and has pushed for more logging in federal forests to reduce wildfires. Now, I know there are tree huggers out there that think, oh no, you're taking away the trees. No. They're you have to do it. And people who are, well, okay, I love the tree huggers who are city dwellers and they think that they understand what happens in the wilderness, and they've never really been there. Yeah. See, in a forest you have trees, obviously. And Rush did a song called Trees that sort of kind of explains what happens, although they do it in a rather snarky tree-hugging way. You have the little trees and you have the big trees, and the little trees sometimes don't get enough sunlight, or for whatever other reason, root systems on the ground, damage due to storms, it doesn't really matter what. The smaller trees often won't grow, they will die or become ill and possibly cause damage to other trees around. And because they are not green and properly growing, they are a fire hazard, and they cause wildfires, which causes all the trees to go away. So, yeah, you need to cut the trees. You need logging to thin out the forest so that you don't end up with massive damage from forest fires, just saying. Okay, this is something that needs to be done. People who have gone camping, have been involved in scouting, often understand this. If they had anything to do with preservation of lands, they understand this. Anyway, so Rob Bishop, he's a good person to have in there. I hope that he wins out in the battle to go and have that taken care of. Anyway, and he also doesn't like the endangered species law that's being used as a tool to stifle energy development. So, another good thing. I'm sorry. Most of the endangered species that the PETA people, etc., try to preserve are not really harmed by anything that we do with energy for the most part. So, let's stop. I mean, we already saw it in the Alaskan pipeline. The animals thrived because of the pipeline, because it created an area of warmth for them in the bitter cold. So, go figure. Anyway, oversight and government reform. That's going to Chaffetz, I believe. So, Ways and Means. That is going to Ryan. John Klein of Minnesota will remain as chairman of the House Education and Workforce Committee. Jeb Henserling of Texas will serve another 2-year term in financial services. Jeff Miller will stay as Veterans Affairs. I feel sorry for him. And then there are quite a few others that are still keeping their positions. So, shuffling of the deck, so to speak. So, while the Republicans remain in charge, they are, moving some new blood in. And other news, back to the Boehner issue. That it appears that Boehner may not just waltz right into being the speaker. That's not to say that he's not going to end up with it. He most likely will. However, 9 conservative Republicans declared that they intend to vote against the Ohio Republican when the House convenes on Tuesday. So that's tomorrow. This is going to be so much fun. Yeah, it's not likely that they're going to unseat him. I would love, of course, Louis Gohmert has said that he's interested in the seat, interested in being speaker. I don't think he could get the votes. I like Louis Gohmert, but not as much as Trey Gowdy. I would love to see him, but of course Boehner's not going to let go. And I know there are quite a few people who will want to hurt me whenever I say this, but there are worse things than Boehner. It is still a Republican House, and I'll be completely honest, I don't know how far left he really is. I know there are a lot of people who have said to me, give up on Boehner, he's a leftist, he's shifting left, he's centrist, he's this, he's that, he's the other, he's a traitor. But let's place this in perspective, folks. He was dealing with Harry Reid all this time. He has never been there without dealing with Harry Reid. And Harry Reid has been the man standing between the House and the White House. He has used the Senate to protect Obama. Well, now that's not going to be the case. So, before everybody starts screaming about Boehner, try to remember, as opposed to the times when he was generally milquetoast before the election in November, remember some of the strong words that he had after the election and before the new year. Basically, going and issuing warnings to Obama about the executive action on immigration, which was something that he could not control. He could not stop Obama from doing whatever he wanted to do. He could not walk into the White House and prevent Obama from writing an executive order. Let's be real. And look back on all of the things that we got annoyed with Boehner about. How many of those things were beyond his control? That no matter which way he went, no matter what he said, it didn't matter. The vast majority of the problems that people have with this man have to do with situations that he had absolutely no control over. Harry Reid was holding all of the cards. So, before everybody starts screaming bloody murder about Boehner, I'd like to see what he does with McConnell. Just saying. Because it's a totally different dynamic. When you're dealing with the opposition controlling the other house, you have to try to move to the center. Or you'll get nothing done. That's just the nature of the beast. That is the way our political system is made up, and a lot of people forget about that. It doesn't matter what passes in the House. You have to get it through the Senate. And when you have Reid standing there trying to prevent just about everything, the few things that you want to get through with bipartisan approval, you have to go and play nice with Harry Reid. That's all there is to it. So, I don't think that it speaks of where Boehner actually stands politically. I think it speaks of what was he dealing with on the other side. But hey, time will tell. And of course, if he still is a pain in the rear, you know what's going to happen. It's not just going to be 9 conservatives saying, we want him gone. No, there will be a more massive uprising among Republicans in the House, and he won't be there anymore. And if it would totally get out of control, it's not completely out of the realm for the Republicans to simply ask him to step down. It's happened before. Anyway, onward and upward to something that people may or may not have been annoyed with Boehner about, and I'm not sure what the heck went on with this. Steve Scalise, Republican out of Louisiana, who supposedly spoke with a white supremacist group 13 years ago. And the group was founded by David Duke, who claims that he has nothing going on for Scalise. Now, I'm sorry. I understand that people are super ultra sensitive and all of this nonsense, but I'm going to point out a couple obvious points. If someone is a white supremacist, simply by the fact that they are a white supremacist, they're in this sort of group, they do not mysteriously lose their right to vote. Doesn't happen. And when you have a state legislator who may or may not have a large group of these people that could, through their influence in their communities, make or break this individual as a politician, when you have that situation, you may have to speak with them. Now, of course, there's argument now whether or not he actually did. Supposedly he spoke to another group that was meeting in the same location at a different time. But who knows? I'm just trying to figure out here. If the substance of the speech, if he had made one, which that still remains up for debate, did not include him saying that Scalise saying that he was going to take the agenda of said organization to the floor of the state legislature in Louisiana and attempt to pass laws that would, I don't know, maybe reenact segregation, something insane like that. If he didn't do that, if all he did was speak with these people, deliver a stump speech, ostensibly to, promote himself as a politician, speaking not at all about anything of the agenda of the group. What's the problem? Because these people vote. If he said nothing saying that he was going to help them in their agenda, if he said nothing about agreeing with them, and all he did was to deliver a generic speech saying what he was going to do for the voters, them, in a general manner, like, okay, I'm going to make sure the roads get fixed, I'm going to make sure that we don't waste federal money in the New Orleans area. I'm going to make sure that we do this, that, and the other. Whatever is important to Louisiana people in general that has absolutely nothing to do with race. I'm trying to find out what the problem is here. Really, I am. Because if he's not in agreement with them, not endorsing what they do, simply giving them information about what he plans to do as a politician, as a legislator, then where's the problem? But anyway, and obviously I think that maybe Mia Love out of Utah might be thinking about the same lines as I am. Because she's saying that he should stay on as the House Majority Whip, and in case anybody missed it, she's black. So, I don't know. I love how people pull up this nonsense, but unless you've got a smoking gun, and in this case, when you're talking about a legislator, I don't give a rat's ass, and neither should anybody else. Nobody should be caring about who he talks to on a campaign trail. They shouldn't care. And even not on the campaign trail, just speaking as a legislator and doing a State of the Union type speech. Who cares? As long as he's not sitting there making promises to individuals to carry their agenda into the legislature, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And he has never stated that he supported their ideals. He has never stated that he would assist them in any way, shape, or form. This is what you call manufacturing controversy. Because there was no controversy involved. For better or worse, there are places in this country, Louisiana included, where there are organizations like this. There are organizations like this in Pennsylvania. Have I ever looked into whether or not there are politicians who have spoken with them at a group gathering? No. Do I care? No. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because, yes, they vote. No, they're not getting what they want from any of the politicians out there because, well, let's be honest. There is no politician insane enough to promote it because that would be certain guarantee to no longer be in the office that they're in. Just saying. This is filed under common sense, folks. However, these people can do damage if they choose to. So, and these people understand this. They know that they can't get a politician to push forward anything that they would possibly want when it comes to a law. They know it won't happen. If they don't realize that, then they might be delusional. And then you really don't care about what they think. Anyway. That gives me a heck of a segue. Speaking of delusional. I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's go and talk about, of all things, Mike Huckabee. He has officially left Fox News. Why? To research the possibility of running for president. I really wish that the Republican Party could just sit there and calmly say to people like Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, please, stop. Sit down. Support whomever you like on the ticket. Support whomever you like in the primaries. But please, stop. I'm sorry. This doesn't fly well. Just saying. And there's a very big reason for it. The Christian right backs Huckabee. There's your reason why this won't happen. Right there. The Christian right backs Huckabee. The Christian right backs Santorum. Same reason. Won't happen. Thankfully, in spite of all their attempts over the years, the Christian right has not become a significant voting bloc anywhere, including in the GOP. They do not have enough political clout anymore in the way of actual mass of votes. They're very vocal. I'll give them that. But let's be honest, folks. the vast majority of people are smart enough to realize that there is no difference. It is just theocracy by another name or something. And I'm not going to do the comparison that a lot of Democrats do, even if they are right. The goal of the people, the goal of a leader, should not be to make one's religious beliefs the law of the land. The goal of a person, particularly in the United States, where we supposedly have a separation of church and state, which I know there are a lot of Christian right who say that isn't really true. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. The Constitution was written to protect your rights to observe a specific religion, whatever you choose. But it does not endorse it. The government is not meant to endorse your religious beliefs. An endorsement means turning your religious beliefs into the law of the land. They do that in other parts of the world. I'm not going to mention them because I'm being kind. But I think you can connect the dots. That needs to stop. And I know the whole gay marriage thing, we have a whole situation. Yesterday, Rasmussen was reporting that support of gay marriage is still 50-50 or somewhere in that neighborhood. I didn't actually read the report, so I'm not going to go on and on about it. But one thing that they did point out in the headline is that the people are of the opinion, apparently there is a majority, what level of a majority, I'm not sure, are of the opinion that laws on gay marriage do not need to be in the federal realm. It needs to be a state level issue. And they're absolutely right. And to be completely honest, it would be much better if the state would just sit there and say, you know what? It's a civil union. No matter what. When you go to the courthouse, it's a civil union. You have to file for legal paperwork, and even conversely, they should go the route that the government used to go at one point. For a while there, if I wanted to offer proof of birth for myself, which I still can, I think, here in Pennsylvania, I could offer a birth certificate or a baptismal certificate, because the baptismal certificate signed by a priest or minister would have my date of birth on it. So they considered a church document, a legal document for the purposes of proving when I was born. What I'm thinking is that maybe the state needs to get out of the whole marriage certificate business. Do civil unions for individuals that have no affiliation with a church. You go to the courthouse, you go to a JP, you get a civil union certificate. And there you go. And as far as marriages go, maybe the state needs to sit there and say, we will accept a marriage certificate from a church. And that's it. And there's your proof of marriage. No crazy paperwork, nothing like that. Just literally take the state out of the loophole, or out of the loop. And I know, they want the money. There's a real simple way to do that. Really, there is. They want their marriage license fees. Okay, fine. Instead of you paying it at the courthouse when you get married in a church, you pay it at the church. And the church pays the courthouse. How's that, folks? Isn't that easy? I think it is. Because they already do this, for all intents and purposes. All they're doing, all that this would do, is make it a little bit more convenient for individuals who are getting married in a church. Instead of having to drag butt to the courthouse or file paperwork with the courthouse in general and have them mail it back to them or whatever, you just get your paperwork right from your minister. You pay your minister the fee, and your minister pays the fee to the county. Wow. That's so hard. Anyway, it's the bottom of the hour, so we got to do that news thing.
This is Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 5th. 2 Republicans have announced they plan to run against John Boehner for Speaker of the House in the new Congress. On Saturday, Congressman Ted Yoho of Florida announced his challenge, and Texas Congressman Louis Gamert made his announcement Sunday. In a statement, Gamert said that the 2014 midterms made it clear voters want leadership changes in Congress, and that, quote, there have been numerous examples of problematic Republican leadership, but we were hopeful our leaders got the voters' message, and went on to cite passage of the Cromnibus spending bill as a reason Congress needs new leadership. It would take 29 votes to depose John Boehner, and if Boehner does not receive a majority of votes on the first ballot, the voting would continue until a candidate does receive that majority. Voting for the Speaker of the 114th Congress will be decided on Tuesday. A 7-year-old Illinois girl is being heralded as brave after she walked nearly a mile from the site of a plane crash to get help. Sailor Gutzler was traveling home with her family when the private plane they were on crashed into a dense Kentucky forest. Gutzler's mother, father, 9-year-old sister, and 14-year-old cousin were killed in the crash. Barefoot and in the dark with temps below 40 degrees, Gutzler walked to the house of 71-year-old Larry Wilkins. Wilkins called 911 and Gutzler was taken to a nearby hospital for treatment. She sustained only minor injuries. Investigators from the FAA and NTSB are working with local law enforcement to determine the cause of the crash. New York City police officer Wen Jianlu was laid to rest Sunday with thousands of mourners paying their respects. But tensions remained between the police force and Mayor Bill de Blasio, with several officers turning their backs in protest as de Blasio eulogized Liu. This action comes as the widow of Liu and Police Commissioner Bill Bratton asked officers not to turn their backs as the mayor spoke, with Bratton saying in a written statement, quote, a hero's funeral is about grieving, not grievance. Liu's widow spoke at the funeral saying of her husband, to me he is my soulmate. Wen Jian is an incredible husband, son, co-worker, and friend, my best friend. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration shows the coldest days of the year are ahead for much of the country. The organization released a map based on 30 years of temperature data indicating the eastern half of the country can expect the coldest days of the year to fall between now and the middle of February. Forecasters are calling for bitterly cold temps and below zero wind chills for parts of the Midwest through the next week. And the sporting world said goodbye to former ESPN anchor Stuart Scott, who lost his battle with cancer Sunday at the age of 49. Diagnosed with the disease in 2007, Scott fought valiantly. In an emotional tribute, colleague and friend Rich Eisen said, quote, I loved this man. I still love this man, and the fact that he has passed away is absolutely mind-boggling and a travesty. Eisen became emotional several times during his tribute. Scott leaves behind 2 daughters, Taylor and Sydney. This is Amy Curtis with your Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 5th.
Hi, this is Jason Dibbler, co-host of Q with a View, heard every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on FTR Radio. Right now, FTR needs your help in making the jump into the 21st century through some long-needed equipment upgrades. This is where you, the great and loyal listeners of Great Conservative Talk Radio, can really lend a hand. Visit GoFundMe.com/helpupgradeFTR right now. Your assistance, no matter how small, will help to ensure that FTR can continue to offer some of the best conservative radio on the interwebs. Your donation of $50 gets you up to 60 seconds of airtime on FTR radio 4 times. For $100, your ad will run 10 times, or if you don't want to run an ad, you can have 30 minutes of FTR airtime to talk about anything you want. There are other thank yous for other levels of giving as well, but those are some pretty great offers. We hope you'll consider making a small donation to help keep quality conservative talk radio alive and thriving on the internet. Visit GoFundMe.com/helpupgradeFTR today. Thank you.
Coming soon to Vigilant Liberty Radio. The Edge of Anarchy. Mondays on VLR.
Hi, Hi, this is Steve Hamilton, Station Director at AltCon Radio. And that sultry voice you're listening to is Liz Harrison on The Liz Harrison Show.
Gotta love it. Anyway, in other crazy news, the EPA made the Denver Post. For beer drinkers out there, you might want to get a little bit nervous. They want to expand their control of water, the Clean Water Act. Yeah. They want to put forward a plan between the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers that would guarantee their right to regulate waterways that don't fall neatly under the Clean Water Act, such as, quote, rain-dependent streams or wetlands near rivers. Ostensibly, this is to, make sure that all the water is clean. Or something. The problem for the beer industry is that it will severely affect the ability of farmers of grain crops that are used for beer making. It will severely curtail their ability to use pesticides, which will increase the cost of the water, by the way. So, basically we're talking about increasing the cost of certain crops. Now, of course, they wrote this in the perspective of beer, but hops and barley are not the only crops out there, folks. So this could affect a lot more than just beer. This could affect just about every type of crop you have out there. Now, granted, I'm not a huge fan of using mass pesticides like they do on a regular basis in the agricultural industry, big agricultural industry. I'm more of a fan of the smaller farms. Primarily because of, instead of using chemicals prophylactically, the farmers tend to use chemicals as they need them. In other words, you don't go and dump pesticide to get rid of grubs that you haven't actually seen affecting your crops, because that would cost money. You see the grubs, you treat the crops. There are no grubs, no treatment. Not hard to figure out. So, basically, I'm ambivalent. I mean, this is something that theoretically I'd wish that the bigger companies would just sit there and say, okay, we're going to follow the same old ways and not use the pesticides unless we actually need them. That would be nice, but whatever. Anyway, the argument with the beer situation is, on one hand, you could have increased cost of other materials. On the other hand, you can have bad water. And good clean water, you get great beer. Which, in Pittsburgh, we all know this. Everybody knows this, because for how many years, Iron City beer, which, by the way, I won't touch, even now, but it used to be a very horrible beer, primarily because they made the beer in the city, and they were using city water. And a lot of the time they didn't pay their water bill, which got them into trouble. But I'd argue, you know what? The city really had a lot of nerve saying that they owed them any money, regardless of what they got out of the water company. Because we used to joke about it. You'd know when the water authority was having issues with treating the water in the city based on batches of Iron City beer. It would taste worse than normal. And a lot of people would complain of, well, getting sick from it. You know, running to the bathroom way too often. So, yeah, it was very difficult to take sides with the city when arguably their water was the cause of people being made ill by Iron City's products. So, yeah. Now the Iron City is apparently much better because they took over what used to be the Rolling Rock Brewery, which relies on spring water in the mountains east of Pittsburgh. So, yeah, the city is not a good place to go and make beer. And as far as these beer companies are concerned, the whole clean water argument, New Belgium Brewing Company in Fort Collins, they're supporting the EPA. I'm thinking, yeah, you're not looking at your bottom line. They say clean water makes great beer. So, I'm thinking, New Belgium, you're nuts. If you're that concerned about clean water, it's called filtration. In-house. You have a large enough operation, and you have enough land. And if you don't, it wouldn't be difficult for you to acquire it. So, anyway. Gotta love it. More EPA nonsense. Well, it wouldn't be, a new year without talking about worrying about this sort of crap. Anyway. On a non-government thing, theoretically. Let's see, where is it? Okay, there it is. CNN Money reports today. Microsoft, they have unveiled the cheapest smartphone in the world. They are launching the Nokia 215 for just $29 as the most affordable internet-ready phone. I'm going to be honest, I'm looking at the picture here on CNN Money. Headline is Meet the World's Cheapest Smartphone, for anybody who really wants to look it up. It puts me in the mind of a child's toy. I mean, they have a bright green, a white, and a black one standing here, and they have the little buttons at the bottom and the big screen, and I'm thinking, eek. Yeah. And it uses the Opera mini browser, Bing search, MSN weather, Twitter, and Facebook. Comes with Facebook's Messenger service for instant notifications. Yeah. I don't know. Battery supposedly lasts 29 days on standby. I'm sorry. And Mozilla has a similar plan in the works. They announced plans to sell a $25 smartphone running Firefox OS, but it hasn't been released yet. I'm not sure about this, folks. I really am not. I understand the whole idea of being more economical, but I'm one of these evil 1%ers. I acquired, in the space of a few months, maybe about 6 months, 2 iPhones and a Samsung Rugby. And these were all purchased on AT&T. And certain fees had been waived. I ended up with certain cuts in fees for service, which I think is just their way of making me feel good. I think they're imaginary fees that they sit there and say exist, but don't really, and I mean, I'm not stupid. But, yeah, we pay rent on them through their next program, so to speak, instead of taking a 2-year contract, per se. We have an 18-month installment plan, which obviously we end up paying more per phone on the lines for that. But when all is said and done, I own the phone, and I can go and take it to Gazelle and resell it for at least some of the money back. And I can go and start up a whole new plan like this without putting any money down and just pay that amount out each month. And I could get whatever the heck I want, for the most part. So, I'm sitting here thinking, what's the problem? And the last phone that we added, I ended up getting a free tablet. So, I don't get it. I understand there are people out there who, I guess this will be a boon for TracFone or something like that. But, seriously, folks, I don't get it. Because, bluntly, a lot of people are way too rough on stuff, and I can't imagine that a $29 phone or a $25 one is going to put up with most of what people out there put their technology through on a regular basis. And it also makes you sincerely question why the other ones are so damn expensive. But anyway, I guess that will be Apple's problem to resolve later, if these end up being reasonably decent. Back to a little bit of politics. This should be interesting. We're starting to talk a little bit, or at least the press is, about what Congress will try to push. And of course, Keystone XL is a big thing. They're wanting to push that through, and apparently they have over 60 votes for it. It's a bipartisan supported thing. And by the way, hypocrisy, they'll name art environmentalists. Because, I'll be honest, and this is going by standard logic, I know this is something that is difficult for a lot of liberals, but the oil is going to get from point A to point B no matter what. If there is a pipeline or not, it doesn't matter. It will move from point A to point B. And without the pipeline, the primary alternative is rails. Now, we've heard a lot of arguments recently, especially since we've seen a radical reduction in the cost of fuel. The government is looking at, on the federal and state levels, increasing gas taxes. Because, they're not getting as much money anymore from gas tax because the price is lower. And tax is a percentage as opposed to flat for the most part. There are certain places, I suppose, where it is flat. But, and based on the gallon as opposed to the cost of the gas. But regardless, they want more money. That's the bottom line. So they want more taxes, and they figure the people will be more likely to be all right with this because the gas prices are so low, it's not going to make that big of a deal to them. This is the argument. Well, ostensibly this is to fix our roadways that are severely, screwed up at the moment. You remember the shovel-ready jobs that didn't happen? Those were the jobs that didn't happen. Yeah, Obama was saying shovel-ready jobs, shovel-ready jobs. He was too busy worrying about other stuff, like increasing the number of people on SNAP. Because that's a much better investment. I mean, I'm sure you all agree. Okay, maybe not. So, basically, if we had taken the money that was the increase in SNAP from the time that the president has been in office to the present day, I think that we would have come remotely close to fixing quite a few of those roads. We might not be sitting there worried about this anymore. Anyway, we think our roadways are bad. Our railways are worse in certain areas. Rails get the shaft, so to speak. And if we have a lot of oil moving on the rails and there are problems, we have derailments. And derailments of oil, big containers of oil, result in explosions and fires and massive destruction. And with the exception of, railways going through some towns where there used to be, rail service, and now it's just primarily commercial rail going through, there's a lot of open land out there where these rails go. So, I'm not sure where the environmentalists are coming from. Because, the environmental impact of the Keystone XL is you're going to have a line of pipe running through the middle of something. And in general, there aren't huge explosions or fires or anything else as a result of that. Once the workers leave, whatever harm they cause to little blades of grass and what have you, the stuff grows back. And the amount of damage done by all of this is arguably less than what nature does to itself. Like lightning hitting dry timber and causing wildfires, an example. Floods, what have you. So yeah, it is a low environmental impact. All around. Period. And it is possible when the workers are pulling out to lessen it by, planting trees and grass and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, I don't know. We will see what happens with the Keystone XL. But on the other issue, we have Israel hoping that the Republican-led Congress will reduce or cut aid to the Palestinian Authority, which I hope they do. I really do hope that that is what happens. So, and bear in mind, the Palestinian Authority is trying to get Israel into court on charges of global war crimes. No, I'm not kidding. Yes, we all know this. And yeah, the world is upside down. It makes yet another argument for the U.S. to have absolutely nothing to do with the UN or any organization like that. But what are we going to do? Yeah. So, basically, we need to seriously consider, and because we do have our own issues here, but we really do need to consider whether or not we should be talking to our representatives in Washington about the possibility of cutting support to Palestine. Well, the Palestinian Authority. That needs to stop. I'm sorry, but it really does. Because it isn't doing us any good. It is hurting Israel, and Israel is the only real ally that we have in that region. So, and onward and upward to other Middle Eastern news. The president, Hassan Rouhani, is trying to call the international negotiations on the nation's nuclear program a matter of heart. Yes, he's going to play on the heartstrings of the world. Or something. He's trying to get the He's trying to balance the hardliners in his own nation and try to get sympathy from other world leaders at the same time. Good luck with that. Really. I mean, I understand the U.S. is pretty much head in the sand and has no freaking clue what the hell's going on there. And, you know, the president thinks that they'll actually follow through when they make a promise, which they won't. But, yeah. On Sunday, Rouhani said agreeing to halt some uranium enrichment, which can create both reactor fuel and weapons, should not be construed as having, quote, compromised our principles and cause. Really? Okay. So they're not giving up on the concept of making a weapon to take out Israel. But they're going to tell us that they are. And they're going to tell the world that they are. But he's going to go back and tell his hardliners that they aren't. Because they are in such horrible economic straits that they need to not be isolated anymore. You know I have an answer to this one. Yeah, let's put the screws to them and isolate them even more. Yeah. I'm sorry, we've made a mistake. We should not have in a million years lifted any of the restrictions against them, nor should we have lifted restrictions against North Korea. And, well, we're leaving Afghanistan, and that's going to blow up a second time around, the same way it did the first time that led to Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So, my question is, why does Huckabee want to run? Why does Bush want to run? Why would Romney want to run? Why would anyone want to run for the presidency? Just saying. The mess that they're going to inherit is going to be ridiculously huge. Ridiculously huge. The ones who won it the most, theoretically, I guess, Clinton, Hillary, that is, and maybe Elizabeth Warren, both have no bloody clue what the hell's going on either, so therefore they don't know any better. But some of these people who I've mentioned, they arguably should know. They should know better. This is not something anybody should logically want to inherit. Anyway, a little bit of housekeeping to go before I say goodbye. At 2 o'clock today, more big news. The Right Mics are coming on, and they will be on for 2 full hours. Yes, so you get to have Mike and Mike for 2 full hours. Let's see how that works out. Oh, this should be fun. Those guys are great. So, they'll be on, and of course, like I said before, you can catch this wonderful programming on K98talk.com. I think later tonight it will be on from 9 to 10 Central, 10 to 11 Eastern. So, have a good one.